Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Current Status. I'm Phoummala Schmitt, and you can find me on Twitter as Exchange Guys. And we're here for another episode. And I'm joined by my co-host, Theresa Miller, who is not on video because she's got shitty internet right now. Theresa, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, the internet gods aren't playing in my favor this evening.
You even rebooted the satellite too, I think.
I did, and I have two internet connections in my home now, and both are working like crap. So, anyways, no video. My name is Theresa Miller, and you can find me on Twitter at 24/7 IT Connect.
And today we don't have a special guest. We haven't determined if he's special enough to be considered a special guest. His name is Laz Vekiarides. And he knows a little bit about this thing called cloud and cloud storage. Do you want to introduce yourself, Laz, and give us a little history on how you got to this, cloud storage phenomenon?
This thing, yeah. So I'm Laz Vekiarides, and you pronounced my name correctly, so thank you. And I am the co-founder of a company called ClearSky Data. And we are building what we're calling a global storage network that is essentially a metro-based storage cloud that is backed by public clouds. And I can go into all sorts of wonderful details about how that works. But think about it as Akamai for storage. I got in this, I actually got into the storage industry. I was on the core team at EqualLogic, which goes way back to late 2001, early 2002. I was there. I worked for Paul Alon, who was the founder, and I ran a software group there, and we built a nice fuzzy storage array. So I've been in storage for quite some time, and the reason eventually that I left. Of course, EqualLogic was a pretty successful company. We got bought by Dell. I stayed on at Dell for a while, a lot of things have been happening over the last, I would say, 3 or 4 years in the storage space, and so it really felt like it was time to do something different. There's been a number of secular trends. One of them is the cloud thing. And that is one of the sort of more fascinating aspects of our technology, is how to convert primary storage into sort of a cloud model. There are a lot of other interesting technologies that have sort of come of age in the last few years, and it felt like it was time to do something different in the storage space. Rather than just build boxes, once I was sort of free from sitting around my big company office, it was kind of easy to see and connect the dots between all the trends. I'm sure everyone's been following Amazon and how big it's gotten in terms of AWS and the compute, it is now like this monstrous $7 billion business. If you think about it, it's growing at double-digit percentages even at that size, and it's a big trend. It seems to be a big disruption.
Before you go any more,
yeah,
do you really think enterprises are ready to go full cloud?
No, I don't believe that at all. The inspiration for us is to, basically find ways to bring the economics of the cloud to enterprises without having to make more or less permanent decisions about where their data lives. So I think there's a lot of reasons why you can't have the cloud be the de facto enterprise infrastructure choice. Enterprises are used to doing things in really kind of belt and suspenders way. You have high availability, you have clustering, you have all sorts of things that have become pretty much de facto now, and you don't really have all of the same technologies available in the cloud. So you can build things that are like that, but you really have to rewrite your applications. And so there's a lot of reasons why enterprises aren't going to go to the cloud right away. I think that there, for a lot of new application development and for a lot of webby stuff, you see a lot of enterprises going to the cloud, and then you also see a lot of startups, smaller companies going to the cloud because they just don't want to have IT. The thing that I learned from my days at Dell is the IT industry is like this $1 trillion monstrosity, and $7 billion, although it sounds big, actually not the lion's share of the market. And so a lot of stuff is not going to always be in the cloud.
So one of the things that fascinated me when I heard about what you guys are doing is that your offering is like true enterprise level. Like I feel like a lot of cloud companies, their SLAs in general are 99.9, 99.99, but your offering is pretty aggressive in that space. So is it realistic, or why do the other companies? What's that?
I said what you said. Yeah, is it realistic? And do you really think you can achieve those SLAs?
Yeah.
Maybe in Boston you might be able to right now, but what if you're in Timbuktu or BFE, like Hershey, PA, or Wisconsin? Are you going to be out there doing the shovel with the fiber?
Well, so let's take that apart for a little bit, because we've spent a lot of time thinking about that. When you think about availability and reliability, you think about all of this redundancy math that everyone always does. So if you want to make up 5 nines anything, usually you take 2 things that are 3 nines and you kind of double them up, right? I mean, that's kind of like how the math works. And so, this is all probability and math. And when we started building the architecture out, we just decided that, since everything that we were touching, including the cloud stuff, was sort of, 3 nines, we would just have to double up everything. We would need to have 2 of everything along the way. And so when we say 5 nines, what we're basically doing is building in redundancy with the system across the entire range of things that your data touches. It's a little bit more complex than just by building a box, because we have a network, we have buildings like the metro area points of presence where we have to have redundancy there. We have links going out to the cloud; those have to be doubled up. But the math works. It's 5 nines in that sense, and we are building an SLA around that. I think it's realistic. I think at some point people will, will come to realize that the math of 5 nines availability is one thing. The reality is a little bit different, but that shouldn't prevent us from saying that we're 5 nines and offering a 5 nines SLA. I think we want to have the same level of availability as your on-prem stuff. And the only way we can offer that is if we just basically apply the same principles. Did I answer that question? I mean,
it makes sense. It's.
I mean, you expect stuff, right? I mean,
what happens if you don't?
Yeah.
I mean, are you going to be out there with a shovel digging a hole in the ground and running the fiber line?
You have to. It's kind of interesting. That's one of the.
Because I'm going to take pictures.
Well, one of the challenges of our model, right? I mean, if we can't get 2 diverse links going into your data center, that's a problem. It's a weakness, right? And that would affect the SLA that we could offer. And so as we're building up the network, we're focusing on these highly connected data centers in all these metros. Most of the enterprises, actually almost all of the enterprises at this point that we're talking to, they're either getting out of the data center business or they've long since gotten out of the data center business, and they're standing up all their gear in colos. And the colo ecosystem is really interesting. Philadelphia is one of the places where Yeah, I know
Philly.
they're great.
Go Philly! Yeah.
And, so Philly, in Boston, it's certainly on the West Coast. We're about to open a point of presence in Las Vegas. In Vegas, believe it or not, I know as much as you like Vegas.
Yeah, I mean Vegas.
The internet rocks, but there's so much fiber in the ground in Vegas, and there's some historical reasons why. But you can get that diversity in the ecosystems that we're playing in. Wisconsin, I mean, I don't know, Theresa, I don't know what I can do.
Well, Theresa rebooted a satellite tonight, and that didn't help. So
you could probably play very well in the Chicago area.
For sure.
Yeah, and maybe Milwaukee.
For sure.
There's probably some good fiber there.
do you think that limits what type of customers you have, or how many customers you get? Does it limit your business? The fact that, coming out to where I live, which is in BFE, because I've got deer and cows and all sorts of animals walking around my backyard, and I mean, I'm a few minutes from Hershey, so I don't know. I'm just not sure if you guys are ready for this space yet. Philadelphia, yeah, I definitely think you could probably do really well there, but here, no, it's shit here.
Yeah, well,
Amish people are about like 35 minutes away. They've got no running water,
the toilets don't flush. I know it's hard.
They've got cell phones though.
Yeah. So I have to tell you, I think we did a lot of research on this, and the addressable market in these data center ecosystems is actually enormous. So we partnered with a company that a lot of people probably have heard of, Digital Realty Trust. They are probably the biggest colo provider in the universe right now. And just in the Boston area alone, they have 7 separate facilities, and they're all interconnected. And one of the value adds of that ecosystem is that all those interconnected buildings are interconnected with fiber that you basically can get for more or less a nominal fee. It's practically free to interconnect 2 racks in that ecosystem at very, very high speeds, like 10 gig or 1 gig, so it's just dedicated connectivity. And when you look at the number of customers, i.e. the number of tenants that are in these buildings, they number into the thousands. And this is just one ecosystem, and you can imagine what it's like in a bigger city. I don't think that Boston is a pretty huge city. We're kind of small, kind of podunk. Think of New York. Think of actually Philly's pretty big.
It is. Pope came here.
Yeah, we didn't get the Pope over here.
Yeah. See, yeah, we're pretty cool. We got the Pope for like 2 days.
Yeah, I know. So how's the traffic?
Popapalooza.
Popapalooza.
But
Still my favorite catchphrase. Anyways.
Yeah. So I was going to spin it. Like San Francisco, another incredibly dense ecosystem for infrastructure like that. Like there's also both Digital Realty and Equinix there, as well as some other lower tier providers. So in those worlds, you have thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of individual customers that are addressable. The other thing too is that we are really designed for companies that have a pretty big footprint, so in the hundreds of terabytes. So when I did EqualLogic back in the day, we were selling single arrays to smaller companies that wanted to build a VMware cluster. So a lot of onesie twosie type deals. Those aren't our customers. If a customer like that needed to use ClearSky, they would probably go with one of our service providers or SI partners, where they would just get aggregated into a solution. So that's the other aspect of our market that is interesting. We're trying to solve a management problem that is really a management problem at scale. And a lot of people that have like one array, they kind of like those one array. They live a charmed life, if I could editorialize there. Not a lot of the customers that I've talked to recently have one array. They have like 100, and then they have to deal with all the complexity that creates.
So let's could we talk about security a little bit? So how do you
Yeah.
feel that customers or your customers or anyone who goes with any form of cloud-based storage in general, what are the security things that they should be thinking about, and what's a good approach to that?
Well, so security is, aside from the availability stuff that we were just talking about that everyone kind of takes for granted as table stakes, security is sort of the ante. You you have to think about a number of different problems. First problem is just general encryption and control. So, encryption is incredibly important, and it needs to be your encryption. It can't be an encryption service from a third party. I think that when it comes to encryption, you have to think about how who actually controls the keys, and it needs to be you. You need the best possible encryption schemes, and the actual encryption key needs to be something that you have control over, and that you could, kind of either revoke or destroy in some way and make your data inaccessible. So that's kind of the start of what you need. The other thing that you have to worry about with security is isolation. Which, sadly in the public cloud world, isolation is something that it's very hard to achieve. So it's not just security of your data when you think about it, but it's also security from the noisy neighbor. So if you're in like a big apartment building and everyone's having a party next door, you may not be able to run your podcast. The same kind of thing applies inside of a multi-tenant environment. So you have to be walled off from both being able to perturb your neighbors, but also from being perturbed. And so there's that level of security. And then finally, the big final thing is this notion of compliance, which in today's world, and I know Phoummala knows a lot about compliance, and she's obviously in the medical field, and
It's overrated.
but you have to
Compliance, just throw it out the window.
Yeah, just forget about it. We don't need that. But you have to have some third parties that go out there and look at this stuff all the time and try to break it or or set standards and constantly review and audit how you comply to those standards. And so those are sort of like at the basics. Those are the three things you have to worry about. And if you're going to have some sort of cloud story for your own IT, you really have to be thinking about these things, because at some point you'll be audited. You have some sort of liability, and you need to be able to, at the very least, show that you did the due diligence. You're compliant. You have all these people that have tried to break into your systems and they failed. That you've done all of the things that are best practices, and you're not negligent. And so all of these things are required. The big cloud vendors, if you look at them, they're making inroads in this direction, but there's a lot of funny stuff there that is kind of a little bit on the edge. Sometimes if your encryption keys are in the cloud with all your data.
I was gonna ask you. So, who do you think whose responsibility is that then? I mean, is
that your responsibility or the customer's responsibility?
Right. Yeah. Who is supposed to do that due diligence?
Well, so we'll help you do the due diligence, and we'll show you what our due diligence has been. Because we do due diligence on ourselves, we actually hired a company to break into our system, and they're just going to keep coming back periodically and do the same thing. Anytime they find anything interesting, we fix it immediately. So it's just part of what we do. You really have to thinking about that holistically. The other thing about control that's kind of you alluded to it earlier. I just the responsibility is always on the owner of the data. And this is one of the reasons why we decided that the encryption keys in our architecture, the encryption keys are always like in the customer's control. We do not want control of the keys. So there's a downside to that. If you somehow lose your key, we have a problem. And so we recommend for people that don't think they can handle that they work with an escrow service, and we integrate with key management systems and things like that, so that we don't have to be the people that hold the data and the key. We just don't want to have both. We can have the data, but we can't have the key. And that's sort of like a base premise for how we manage the data. We think this is the only way you can do this and not lose your mind or lose a lot of sleep. But maybe you know better. I don't know. If you have a better idea, let me know.
I have another question. Data sovereignty. What are you going to do about that?
That's a hard,
It's tough. I mean, with this whole ruling on safe harbor, what's the dealio?
Well, so
because wouldn't that limit your ability to go global, or I guess you're really gonna have to shift how you do business then, if you want to be able to be this cloud provider or cloud storage provider for global enterprises.
Well, one of the things that we do, you have to remember what we're doing is really we're a network. So we back into a storage cloud that is physically present somewhere, and we'll tell you where that is, right? So right now we're working with Amazon, and in Vegas we're in West, in the East Coast pops we're at Amazon East. So there's some goodness to that, physically where your data lives. Outside of the U.S., it gets more complex, right? The U.S. is actually a really interesting country because it's so enormous. What happens in Europe is probably a really interesting discussion. In Europe, if you're in England, you have one cloud. If you're in Germany, you have another, and you have to kind of weave through all of the regulations for each country to figure out where exactly it is that you can actually back into. Thankfully, the EU is a little bit more consistent than that, but for example, England is different than Germany.
Yes, it is.
That's a problem. In the Far East, don't even get me started there. It's even more entertaining.
In China.
Well, I don't think we're going to China soon.
Hey, come on! You gotta have aspirations and dreams,
So
if they're making chocolate in China, you can go to China, Laz. Come on. They have research. Hershey Foods is, I think, they have research facilities. At the time when I interviewed there, they were starting to bring up research labs, R&D in China, and all I kept thinking was, okay, R&D chocolate in China, that's not going to be good. It's going to be interesting. Let's just say that.
No,
I better get my chocolate.
there you go.
No, I'm willing to help anyone taste chocolate. Just let me know. I don't know how far I fly, but.
So I find this topic really interesting because I believe Microsoft kind of got into a little bit of trouble over where data was living with their Office 365 platform, and not that they're actually necessarily doing anything wrong, but I believe there's a lawsuit pending on that. So, back to Phoummala's question, starting out as a new business, how do you play in that territory, or maybe you just don't?
Yeah, well, are you
are
you developing a plan?
Yes. So I can't tell you.
Can you share it with us?
I will actually share as much as I.
As your lawyers are going,
right.
So that if I change my mind about something, you promise not to yell at me later, right?
It's on the internet. That means it's true. It's real. Okay, believe everything.
No, it's to a certain extent. it's just like building any other system, right? And I've been blogging about this for a year now. You know, in the EqualLogic days, we built a system. We bought drives from Seagate and Maxtor, who's gone now, and you know, Western Digital and Hitachi and so on. And you built a system that worked. But you know, a lot of times you'd have problems with these drives, and whose fault was it? Well, it was yours, even though Hitachi built the drive or whatever. I'm not picking on Hitachi, but we kind of have the same set of problems with clouds, if you think about it, right? If you're going to build something on top of any one of these cloud services, you're basically using them as a component, and so you need to be really, really careful about how you choose them, and so that's what we're doing. One of the things that we liked about Amazon is that they'll tell you exactly where the data is going to live, at least vaguely anyway. So, you know, Amazon East is near Ashburn, Virginia, and we know exactly how to connect to that place. And so it's you know, reasonably comforting to know that. And you know, if you're in the West Coast, they'll tell you exactly where you have Amazon West. They give you the granularity to know physically where the location of the data is. And sovereignty is all about the physical location generally. You know, I remember talking to some, there was one customer that was like in hysterics because he had read some article that claimed that Amazon is shuttling his data to China or something like that. I was trying to figure out, like, how would they do that? I mean, it's actually expensive to do that.
Right.
You know, you wouldn't do that unless you were truly evil. I mean, there's no upside. And so,
well, you could do it for fun, you know. Be like,
That's some twisted fun.
I mean, if you want to be a Bond villain, you know, we could like work out some agreement or something like that. But you know, it's not. It's, you know, in general, Amazon's been pretty good about being reasonably transparent, and you know, you'll see, you know, the Azure cloud is being that way. I mean, you know, if I can, you know, Google is not. They're a little bit more opaque. If I were to critique any of them, I mean, they expose some actual locations, but they don't tell you all of them, so you really don't know where you're going. So that's really kind of important in general, right? It's not as important when you're talking about how things work in the United States. There's a latency problem, which we haven't touched on yet, but you know, speed of light is finite, and so you kind of want to know vaguely how many miles away you're transmitting the data, so you know what the latency numbers are. But when you're crossing country boundaries and jurisdictional boundaries, now things become really, really important. You need to know exactly where things are going. So when we roll out in England, for example, we're probably going to be backhauling in the Ireland facility. You know, there's a Frankfurt facility for Amazon. We're going to only be able to offer services in places where we're legally covered for backhauling into Frankfurt, and that's going to limit the market. But we don't think it's going to limit it that much. Japan, I mean, we've been looking at Japan recently, and Japan is kind of an interesting thing because you know, you have the cloud providers, but you also have pretty much every telephone company has decided that they want to build their own cloud. And so you have a much more interesting and diverse ecosystem of possible providers there, and we have to decide what we're going to do there. Just in general, we'd like to stay with one vendor because we get, you know, obviously lots of volume discounts if we keep sticking data in Amazon or sticking data in Microsoft. But you know, it may not legally be possible to do that in order to meet our goals. So anyway, it's not easy, but we have to do it, and we have to do it kind of lockstep. And we chose to do this. I mean, this is you know, what the company has decided to do. A global storage network basically requires us to be legal every place we're putting data. So anyway,
so if you go to jail, I'm not coming to get you in some Russian prison. Just so you know that.
There is no Russian problem at this point.
Well, they put you in jail.
We are not.
Luis,
We're not bailing you out.
I don't have plans for anything in Africa at the moment. Nothing in Asia. Brazil, actually, we might do Brazil.
Ooh, Brazil, yeah. Brazil's a tough market, though. From my past life, Brazil, can be interesting. Lots of corruption. Yeah, just it's interesting. Brazil.
Well, so we're levered to both the telecom market and the colo market in any particular location. So it needs to be mature. Brazil is actually reasonably mature, despite the corruption and
Despite the corruption.
I mean,
Well, I think
they seem to party a lot, and I wouldn't mind visiting Brazil.
Yeah, let's all go to Brazil.
Yeah.
well, some of those, foreign entities, that's part of doing business, and then you have an ethical decision to make. How does it comply with how you want to do business? Do you take a pass or do you pursue? So,
Yeah.
I always when you start looking at business overseas, it really, it's definitely a location by location decision.
It is, and you have to think about it. Holistically, it's a customer decision, and so I think that you have to start with the perspective that, as a company, ClearSky is only going to deal with this jurisdiction in sort of like a compartmentalized way. Sending data from Brazil to the United States has repercussions, and we need to make sure that we're covered in those environments. And it's unclear how we would do that just yet. I'm sure we can figure it out, but we're just not willy-nilly going to do that just because there's a company that's multinational and they happen to have a location in some countries where.
Yeah.
Well, if you need a consultant to help you, I'm more than happy to take one for the team and fly down with you. Yes. Tahiti, Fiji,
So
those facilities, Hawaii.
Yeah, Hawaii. I don't know if you realize this, but Hawaii is a massive connectivity hub. So you can get really good
we can all go there together. So
Hawaii, I'd be on board with.
I'll
tough it out.
Yeah.
Take one for the team.
Yeah, I'll definitely take one for the team on that one.
Can we do this on location in Hawaii?
Yes, we can. We can. It just
has their internet's probably better.
Probably. I'm sure the ratings will go pretty high because we'll be on the beach somewhere drinking pina coladas with little umbrellas, in our beach gear.
Yeah.
There you go.
With sand between our toes.
Yes, I'm willing to make the sacrifice.
Definitely. I will. I'm gonna take one for the team. Everybody. Yes, I'm gonna go to Hawaii, and I know it's rough. It's really rough.
But I think a lot of one of the things that when I was first researching the company, and it was like the summer of 2013, I was wandering in the wilderness asking people would they do such a thing as this, and one of the things that I came to realize is that you're in the current world, people think of themselves as either box huggers or cloud huggers.
Cloud huggers.
Well, I'm serious.
I'm tweeting that right now with cloud huggers.
Cloud huggers.
I spoke to an executive in a company that will remain, a very large company that will remain anonymous for this conversation, who basically said, well, you have some customers that are box huggers, and we'll never be able to sell to them because they just love their boxes. And when you start drilling down, what people care about is not so much hugging the box; it's the data that it's control. They're data huggers, not box huggers, and they just don't want to lose control. And so, in order to let them see that they have control, you have to take a lot of steps. You have to be trustworthy. You have to be transparent, and you have to give them a lot of knobs where knobs make sense for them. And that's why. We're doing a lot of these things as part of our service. We don't want to be like just an opaque pipe that shuttles your data to China where it's basically being decoded by hackers day in and day out. That's not the formula for a successful business. And so transparency for some of these things is very, very important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our time's almost up. So before we end the show, there are a couple like news announcements recently that we do want to kind of maybe chat about a little bit. I kind of get your thoughts on it. Like this whole Dow buyout. I know we talked about in our last show when Gina was here. And
Well, then it was
yeah,
yeah. At
yeah, it's
that
just a
point, it was a
rumor
rumor.
then.
Right
So
now, it's for real.
yeah, it's real. So what are your thoughts on this? Now that
Well,
we've got Run DMC,
So
you're
I wrote
a former Dow employee.
so I actually wrote a blog post where, so I'm Greek, so I'm entitled to have three opinions on everything and argue with myself. So I'll give you the three things. I mean, if you want to believe that this is going to be a success, you have to believe that somehow they're going to be able to reconcile the product lines and kind of grow the business from where it is. And I can't get myself to that end state. If you think through that, remember I was also a Dell insider, so I might know something about how that company's run. But large companies in general, they can't move very quickly, and so I think that it's a very, very tough road to make something like this successful. The other thing that I keep thinking about, obviously, we're big believers that there's a secular change in the way people consume IT. When you're talking about big IT, enterprise IT in scale, it's becoming more and more service oriented, and that requires a different view of the business. And so when you go off and you buy a huge legacy business like EMC, you have to ask yourself, well, how is that like sort of cash cowing it, or do you really believe that you're going to be able to change everything so that you could, adapt to the way things want to be consumed in the future? I have a hard time buying into that, and I think my prediction, and I'm on the record saying this, is that what will end up happening here is that it's kind of almost a tragedy, right? The things that are that are happening in the industry are not within the control of Michael Dell or EMC or anybody else. And so, in the end, you're gonna see a gradual shrinking of the legacy business, and things like you saw the startup that the little company that they spun out, like Virtustream. Companies like that are kind of the future of this business, and in many ways, that's what the business needs to look like, although that's just a very, very small sliver of a very, very large business right now. So it's,
I think this is the beginning of something bigger, almost
I
like
agree.
a bubble bursting, especially with Western Digital buying SanDisk. I
there's
mean,
another
it
thing
just
there.
seems like all this consolidation. It's like this cycle is
Well,
coming back.
Yeah,
And this bubble is going to.
yeah, and I think that's entirely possible. I think back to, I mean, this is probably one of the largest buyouts we've seen, but like think back to like the HP Compact days too. I mean, you took two larger companies and kind of absorbed the Compact thing, and it turned into something good for a while. But businesses need to adapt and change over time, and this will somehow morph into something that should theoretically be something good. And so we'll see. We'll see if we get a burst or a good outcome. I feel like it's going to be good, though. We just have to see how it transpires.
the other thing I always tell everyone, one of the things I try and tell myself all the time, and sometimes it's hard, that the technology business is actually very cyclical. I'm old now and I've seen the cycles a couple times, and so you get totally depressed when things aren't going well, and then totally manic when things are. We're kind of in a down cycle right now, and so you're going to start to see for the last year and probably going into the beginning of next year, you're going to see a lot of consolidation. But if you look at all the startups out there right now, there's a whole set of new ideas that are going to hit the market over the course of the next year or so that they're going to change things, right? I mean, that's how this thing works. So you just have to be patient sometimes, see how things play out.
I don't have patience. You should know that by now. I have no patience.
Oh, come on.
I want it right now. Right now. I'm very demanding. I'm
Yeah.
like the worst boss to work for.
Yeah,
Why didn't you look at the logs? You didn't figure this out yet? You've got 2 minutes. I would have had this done already.
oh my goodness. You're a project manager's worst nightmare.
Where's my alcohol?
You know?
Where's my drink? I'm
You know,
not that bad.
no, you could never be that.
No, it's just all an act, everybody. I'm actually really nice. I'm a sweetheart. Yeah, I cry. Yeah, I cry during movies, and I can't watch a commercial without like crying. And I watch the Hallmark Channel movie, so yeah, I'm. It's all an act. I'm not really mean at all.
Not at all, no.
No.
I'm gonna just one more thing on the whole like Dell EMC thing. So Dell World was going on this week too, and I caught tidbits of it here and there. But one of the things that I thought was pretty interesting was one of their keynotes. They focused pretty strongly on the whole topic of Internet of Things. And just some really interesting comments that came up. Like one of them was like about parenting, like wearables, like having monitors to check diapers, and like is there really a market there? I thought that was pretty fascinating. So there's talking about things like that and the whole EMC thing. You just kind of wonder where could the business go.
It's Internet of Things is a really
Skynet
market. It's there's you could have a whole show on just Internet of Things. The fact that your refrigerator could be talking to its manufacturer like every day. It's a very, very. Here's a good. If you're in the storage industry, those things out there are creating a lot of data, and it needs to be stored somewhere and analyzed. And it's a huge opportunity. I don't know that it's fully there yet. There's like specific use cases out there, but it's still just a platform. We're very early in that. And think about it. Think about things like your car could be like telling someone somewhere that you're speeding. It could be telling all sorts of things or logging all sorts of pieces of information. And it's an opportunity to find out things, but there's also something creepy about Internet of Things, just for the same reasons.
Yeah, there's a whole security aspect of that that is a little concerning.
We did
Tesla. We did
Internet of Things show this summer.
Yeah,
Tesla was in the news recently too. They have vehicles that will can be put in autopilot, and they were being heavily criticized for that, like it not being safe. That's also like an Internet of Things conversation as well.
Well, I'm not sure if that's any safer than me driving, so.
I actually think that's an ethics conversation. Like, if two automatically piloted cars collide, whose fault is it? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that's where the line where the concern is, where the criticism comes from. Has it been tested enough? Where's the safety in that if you can put a car on autopilot and it's not ready? And I don't know that it's not ready, but there seems to be a perception out there. So
I don't think it's ready. I mean, what if your car got hacked?
Didn't that happen to?
The Jeep.
Yeah.
You don't have a Jeep, do you?
Yeah.
No.
But the whole Skynet thing freaks me out. I'm sorry, but it does. I'm not ready for it yet. Okay, I still need to build my bomb shelter in the basement. I don't have enough guns yet. Give me a couple more years.
But I mean, you're in medical records, aren't you? I mean, have you looked at like some of the stuff that?
Yes, I have, and let me just tell you, most healthcare companies do not purge. I mean, most data retentions are very long or forever. The reason is because of so many lawsuits, and there are so many litigation cases that nothing gets purged. So your risk is, really should be here, but it's like out here, and that's scary. And and then the things that we're doing with healthcare, the innovation. I mean, just the company I work for, we're doing this program where doctors will actually visit you via webcam. To, I don't know. It just kind of it takes that personal touch out of seeing a doctor. This whole internet of things is just, it's scary. It becomes, I mean, it's great at the same time because you're like, wow, it can connect people, but it's scary because I keep seeing the Terminator and Arnold Schwarzenegger coming out and saying he's going to be back.
Right.
Do they keep the videos? So if I have a video conference with my doctor, is that going to be part of my medical records forever and ever? Don't creep me out now.
I cannot confirm or deny that.
I would think it would have to. Yeah, you probably can. I would think it would have to be part of it.
Yeah, data.
Yeah. Well, you know what else I find fascinating about healthcare is HIPAA. HIPAA is not even close to, when it comes to rules and regulations, you are far better off using like a Sarbanes-Oxley type plan, even in healthcare. That the whole records retention is that there are no rules. But like you said, the lawsuits are what force the healthcare organizations into, adopting like a SOX compliant model just to make sure that they're protected.
Some don't though. Some just go,
correct.
Let's just make sure we're HIPAA compliant. But with HIPAA, there is no real standard. It's all interpretation. And then as an IT professional in your IT organization, you're just like, well, shit, I'm fucked because we're just going by what the legal department says, and you end up keeping everything, and then people are complaining, let's reduce storage costs. Well, we can't reduce storage costs because you want us to keep everything.
Right.
It's a catch-22. So it just, it really sucks. I think I need to drink more.
It always helps. Lots of storage as a result.
Well, wow, it's late.
I was just gonna say we have it's been a blast.
Right, so we
late.
I know my son's gonna have a fit when he does post production on this for iTunes. He's gonna start complaining. This was a really long episode, Mom. You have to pay me double now.
Not my fault.
Yeah, this was definitely a great episode, and I think we can categorize you as being special or very special.
Okay.
Agreed. Yeah. Agreed. Special guest.
You are a special guest.
I've been promoted to special guest. Excellent. This is awesome. You guys.
Yeah. Because we always start with special guests, and at the end,
an ordinary guest.
Yes.
He might be upgraded to an interesting guest. At some point, he might become special.
You are definitely special. This was a great show, and I hope our viewers found it interesting, informative. And if you didn't, let us know. Tweet us, yell at us, send us hate mail if you want. I'm not going to read it. We'll send it to Laz. We'll forward it to him.
Make sure I only want it on Twitter. 140 characters. That's all.
There you go.
Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Thank you, Laz, for joining us. And Theresa, I'm so sorry about your internet.
That's okay. You know what?
I'm gonna be
I should have at least made an appearance at the beginning. I am here.
There you are.
She's there.
But I will sacrifice audio quality momentarily if I would have stayed on. So,
Laz,
Laz,
can you fly out to Wisconsin and run fiber to Theresa's house for her?
I'll do that for you. Yes.
We need it. We need fiber. That is the issue.
Teresa needs fiber. We'll get that.
It sounds like a personal issue.
We have fiber 7 miles away, but they don't have enough customers to run the fiber to my area because of the location. So Laz
Yes.
has
Get your
committed
shovel.
to getting me some fiber.
I'll get you fiber. Sure.
Laz
I'm
is
sure
getting
if
Theresa fiber.
I'm sure if I type in your home address into my database, they'll tell me that Comcast will provide you with 1 gig of high speed connectivity. But it's only for storage, unfortunately. So I don't know what to do about that.
I promise you, Comcast can't get me 1 gig.
Okay. Well, thank
All
you,
right.
everybody.
Thank you. Have a good night. Thanks,
This was a great
Laz.
show.
Guys, you've been great.